Hello everyone and welcome back to another video. My name is Juan Londoño and today's topic is how many photographs do I need to take to become any good? Now this is a Photo Philosophy Friday topic. So what that typically means is that we kind of go off the script a little bit. I like to analyze, go into topics a little deeper, so keep that in mind. Also keep in mind that this doesn't really apply to just photography. It applies to any creative field. So whether you're interested in painting, in scuba diving, in any type of work, right? What else can I think of? Anything really. This applies. This concept applies. How many times do I need to do it if you're building furniture? How many times do I need to do it before I'm any good? If you enjoy doing other things besides photography, keep that in the back of your mind as you're listening to this. And you can ask yourself that question with the other things that you do. Today's topic is brought to you by Henri Cartier-Bresson. Now, I probably butchered that name and I'm sorry. French photographer. For anybody that does street photography, it's like the godfather of street photography. And he had a quote that became very, very popular. The quote basically said, "Your first 10,000 photographs are your worst." Now keep in mind, it wasn't your first 100 photographs or your first 1,000. Well, luckily for us, it's not the first million, right? But the first 10,000 photographs are your worst. Before we go any further, we're going to do an early water break. Look, I have a different water bottle today. This is bigger, holds more water. So if you don't have any water with you, please hydrate. Pause the video for a second, go get yourself some water. I'll be right here waiting. I hope you're back with us, and if you are, let's continue. So the quote that we just talked about kind of infers that, practice is going to be key here, right? How many times you do these things is very important. So you have to get out there, and if we're talking about photography, you have to shoot. I mean, how else are you going to get to 10,000 photographs? You have to shoot. But it's not just shooting randomly. It's shooting in a focused, more aware, kind of mindful, setting. And again, this applies to all the other disciplines, right? If you're building furniture, then you want to build as much as you can early on, and you want to make mistakes. That's fine, because that's how you get better. But you want to analyze your work, right? You need to look at it and figure out if you're headed in the right direction. And once you analyze each piece that you make or each photograph that you take, then you can figure out what you're doing right or wrong and then set a path for yourself. So the first point we're going to discuss in how to get to that mastery level at 10,000 photographs, let's say, and I wouldn't say 10,000, cabinets, because that would take forever. Maybe 10,000 joints if you're making furniture, right? If you're doing paintings, maybe, you can come up with your own kind of quota here, right? Your own measurement, I should say. But for us as photographers, it's going to be 10,000 photographs because that's what Henri Cartier-Bresson was talking about, right? Photographs and being 10,000, where the first 10,000 are going to be terrible, and then after that you can actually start seeing some improvement. So that first point is having a goal. You want to have a goal for yourself. And what does that mean? You want to kind of see yourself a year, 2 years from now in your mind, envision what your photography is going to be looking like. And you can't do that if you're not looking at other photographers. So inherent in that, and maybe I could call that as a different point, but either way, whether it's a separate point or within this point, you need to be looking at other photographers' work so you can decide which kind of direction you want to head in, right? What you start to like and dislike, and you close your eyes and you see yourself being that type of photographer a year from now, 2 years from now. You give yourself a goal. And of course, a goal without a plan is just going to remain a goal. So you have to have a plan. So you sit down and you write a plan. How am I going to get there? Okay, I need to shoot 10,000 photographs. So the first thing is, how am I going to shoot 10,000 photographs? Am I doing landscapes? Then I need to be out there with my camera wrapped around my neck all the time, just shooting. If you're doing street photography, it should be on you all the time, right? If you're doing portraits, then you're going to have to get busy doing portraits. And there are many ways of doing that. I cover that in other videos, right? If you're local in a town or in a city, you can sponsor events where local actors or local models or whatever come in, and you do like a portrait every 15, 20 minutes, and it becomes an assembly line, and you become really good at doing that. Within that plan of how you want to get there to your 10,000 pictures and how you need them to be meaningful, there are books, there are videos. This is one, for example, YouTube. There are video courses that you can buy. There's a company, The Great Courses. I'll link that down below. So there are many different ways that you can learn about photography, so you can have that goal and that plan set for yourself, especially part of this plan, right? How am I going to get there? Well, I'm going to have to train myself. And the continuing part to all that is just staying educated, right? You don't just get to a point where you learn photography. Okay, I know what aperture is, I know what shutter speed is, I know what ISO is, I can kind of maneuver my way around the camera, I'm done. I don't need to learn anything else. That's not a good mindset if you're going to constantly improve, and I should go that way, right? Because you're looking at it the other way. So if we're going to constantly improve, we have to always learn. And there's always something new coming out. Now software changes all the time. There are different software types for editing. There's always something you can learn there. If you're a photographer and you're including some B-rolls in your small videos that you're doing, for example, you're doing this type of video and you show your pictures, you have to learn videography. You have to learn how to, what is B-roll, right? What kind of camera can I buy for that? There's always something to learn. Once we have a goal and we know kind of where, what direction we're headed in, right? Where we want to be, like in a year, 2 years. That's our goal, right? If it's 2 years because I don't have a lot of time, then it's 2 years. If I have even less time, it might be 3 or 4 years where I want to be a decent photographer. That's okay. That's a personal decision that you need to make. I need to make it for myself. So once you have that goal, come up with your plan, write it down, right? Am I gonna do a little bit of reading? Am I gonna do videos? A little bit of both, right? Am I gonna get together with other photographers and go out on the weekends? That's a nice way to to get some hours accrued and to get many pictures taken. And then you're sharing with other people, sharing ideas. They're telling you what they do. You tell them what you do, what works, and that's a very quick way to make progress. The next thing, obviously, and I say obviously because it follows kind of that direction that we're going in, set a goal, come up with a plan, educate yourself, right? That's the next thing. Make time to educate yourself, and then you have to get out there and you have to shoot. You have to make time to take pictures. That's the only way you're going to get to 10,000 photographs. I will tell you, if you're kind of in that level of photography where you're starting to be a little bold and you're starting to take some paid work and you're doing some small weddings, you're going to get to 10,000 pretty quick, because most people that I know, especially the younger generation, they're used to holding that shutter button down for a while. And I mean, a while, I mean, bursts, right, of 10, 15 pictures, because then they go through that and they look for the best picture. If that's your style, that's fine. It's not my style, but if you like doing that, you're going to get to 10,000 pictures really quick. Now, are those 10,000 pictures going to be as meaningful as a person who's calculating the one picture and takes that one picture, calculates the next picture? It's probably not going to be that meaningful. You probably can't count 10,000 just by holding the button down and shooting 15, 20 pictures in a row. I would say if you shoot 15 pictures in a row and you get 2 good ones, then maybe count that as 2. But my point is, it's easy to accrue a lot of pictures today with digital cameras, right? Back in the film day, you put a 24 or 36 roll film in your camera, and that's what you went into the city with. If you can afford 3 of those, I used to buy professional film. It was expensive, right? Expensive to develop too. So I couldn't afford but maybe 3 rolls for an entire weekend, and I go into Manhattan shooting pictures. You had to make them really, really last. So you were very careful about what you did, and it made you plan a little better. I feel like we've gotten away from that, and we don't plan our pictures that well, because you know what? I can look at them on my camera. I can look at them when I get home on the computer. If I don't like them, I can delete them. That flexibility is wonderful, but that flexibility also kills creativity. Now, I'm not telling you to go buy a film camera and go backwards. If you want to do that for nostalgic reasons, that's fine. If you've done that in the past and you feel like doing it again, I think about that all the time, but that's not where I'm going. What I'm trying to say is, it's easy to not care as much with digital cameras. So now that we have digital cameras in our hand, let's be conscious about what we're doing. Let's be mindful. When we take that picture, let's think about it a little more. That'll help you get to your 10,000 pictures in a much more mastery level than just getting to 10,000 and still being a mediocre photographer. So back to where we were, take time, carry your camera, and just shoot as much as you can, right? I did that when I was starting out, even with film. I carried my Canon F1 with me all around the city. When I went to the store, when I saw something I liked, I would take a picture of it. Ooh, the train's coming. Ooh, take a picture of it. You know, that kind of thing. I briefly touched on, you know, if you're getting into portraits, for example, you can set up something in your town where people just come in and you schedule people. You can advertise online, social media. If it's a small enough town, you can just tell people. If it's a big city, then you can just put it out there. You can do flyers, you can do electronic flyers, whatever works for you. But, you know, work with a local movie company, tell them you want to do headshots and you'll give them a cut. You know, that's what it takes, right? I've done this before. And you set up, you know, 50, 60, 70 portraits for that day, and you basically just keep the line moving, right? A person's up there for 10 minutes and you don't want to keep the other people waiting, so you become really good at moving people around quickly, setting up lights quickly, and coming up with ways of doing different shots without necessarily having to adjust all your lighting. You basically just change the angle and do a couple of things. So Sean Tucker, which is a photographer that I absolutely love and I follow, he has a great video on corporate headshots, and he talks a lot about these things, how you can maximize your time when you're doing this stuff. I'm going to put a link down to his video below, okay? And remember, as you learn, we talked about learning, make sure that you learn the basics well. That applies to anything. If you're into martial arts and you're serious about what you would like to learn, you know that you need to learn the basics really well before you can attack any of those complicated moves, right? If you're into painting, you know that you have to understand colors. You have to understand the materials, whether it's acrylic or oils or water-based, whatever it is. You have to understand them well before you know how to mix them and play around with them. So don't disregard the basics. The basics is what's going to get you up to mastery level a lot quicker. When you disregard those basics and you start trying to do the advanced things, you're standing on a wobbly foundation. That's not going to get you anywhere. Regarding new gear, yeah, become aware of what's coming out. You can subscribe to one of the magazines, photography magazines. I love looking through them because, if for nothing else, it shows me all the stuff that's coming out. There are good articles in there as well. But it's okay to be informed of all the gear that's coming out. But don't go crazy trying to think that you have to buy it all, or that you have to buy a whole bunch of it, or ooh, a new lens, or ooh, look at the aperture of that thing, ooh, look at that tripod, it's much lighter than mine. There's always going to be new gear. There's always going to be stuff that's better than what we have. What we have is probably enough. So what I'm trying to say is, don't go crazy thinking that you need to buy a whole bunch of stuff, or even thinking that it's the be-all, do-all of your photography, and it's going to get you to that mastery level a lot quicker. It'll get you there a little quicker in the sense that it'll be easier for you to do things maybe with a good camera and a good lens than it is with a crappy camera and a crappy lens. The picture that you can take as a good photographer with either of those systems, you know, like a mediocre camera with a mediocre lens and a great camera with a great lens, the difference between those two pictures is very slight. I've seen videos where photographers shoot with a $500 camera and then they shoot with a $5,000 camera. And even the photographer will say, I can barely tell the difference, right? That says two things. That says that in fact, they are a good photographer because they can take a mediocre camera and make it work well. But it also says a lot about our equipment today. Cameras have come such a long way that even your entry-level camera that you can buy at an electronics store like Costco, Walmart, Target, whatever it is, right? Best Buy, Adorama, B&H Photo, whatever it is, right? Whatever you buy there for $500 that comes with a kit lens, that is going to be a phenomenal camera compared to what people used to have 20, 30 years ago. So don't let that bother you when you see all that equipment. Don't feel less than other photographers that have more equipment. Some photographers have more equipment because they have money to spend. Other photographers have more equipment because they like to show off and they don't even know what the heck they're doing with it. And some photographers have a lot of equipment because they use it, because they do different types of things. If you're doing weddings, you're going to use primarily 3 lenses that are very important. I talk about the Holy Trinity of lenses. Well, if you're doing portraits, you may just need 1 prime lens, not 3 zoom lenses, right? So with an open, very open, f-stop, like 1.2. And if you're doing sports photography, you may need a huge telephoto lens, right? So you start accruing, equipment if you start playing around with different types of photography. And if you build your own photography company to offer all these types of photographies, then yes, you're gonna need different types of lights, different types of soft, boxes and different things. So when you come across a photographer like that, don't feel bad if you don't have what they have. It's not important. The important thing is that you're learning the basics and you're practicing them, and that you're slowly practicing all the other things that you're learning in these magazines and in books and what you're seeing other people doing, and you're getting better and better and better. You have that goal about when you want to be, so good, and you have a plan on how you're going to get there. You're taking time to educate yourself, all these things. We also touched on this earlier, self-critique your work. When I said, a person making, for example, cabinets is going to look at what they're doing and see how they're going to improve. Self-critique, auto-critique your work. Make sure that you're taking time. You don't just blast 600 pictures when you go up into the mountains, come back and pick your favorite picture and then ignore everything else. Look through the pictures and see where you're wasting time taking pictures that are not important, right? My daughter was a good example. She had taken a bunch of pictures with a friend and she wanted to put, I think it was 160 pictures in an album. And I said, sweetheart, looking through these pictures, they're all wonderful memories, but you can probably cut that down quite a bit. And I was thinking 30, 40 pictures. If she cut it down that much, that would be great. If she took 30 or 40 off the top there. You know what she did? She went through it with that eye. I said, look for things that mean something. Look for pictures that are a little different, that spark a wonderful laughter or, a fond memory. Not just any old picture. She cut those pictures down to half. She ended up with about 85 pictures. I was very proud of her. But that's the kind of clinical eye that we need to do, that we need to approach our photography with, right? That we need to use. So if I go out to the gardens, the local gardens here in North Georgia, or Gibbs Gardens, beautiful place. I'll also include a link down below for that in case you live in Georgia and you want to check it out. And even if you don't and you want to come check it out, beautiful place. You know what? I'll include some pictures at the end of this video so you can see what kind of pictures you can take there. But going on that topic, when I go there, I can take 400 pictures if I'm there for 3 hours, for example, and I get home and I look through every single picture. You can classify them. I typically don't, but I put them in folders. So I look at all the pictures and then I create a better folder and I put the ones that I really like in the better folder. But that's not enough cutting down for me. So after I've looked at the regular ones and cut them down to the better, I create a best folder and I look at the better ones 3 or 4 times over and over again till a lot of that stuff starts looking redundant and only maybe a dozen of them really pop and stand out. And then I put those in the best folder. Those are the ones I go into Photoshop. Those are the ones that I, retouch a little bit to make it look like I was there, like what I was seeing that day, because I keep my camera completely flat. I keep it in, just all the standard settings. I don't up anything in my camera. So when I look at the pictures, they tend to be a little flat. So in post-production, I just give it a little saturation and clarity, just a little bit so that it looks like what I was seeing that day when I was there. That's about all I do. I don't like to overkill my pictures in post-prod. Another good idea when you're looking at your work is compare it to, if you've only been shooting for a year, compare the work that you're doing at the end of the year to the beginning of the year. If you've been shooting for 4 or 5 years, look at the pictures you're taking today, pull out some pictures that you were taking when you started those first few months. You should see a difference. And that's going to motivate you to go, wow, you know what? I have improved. Because many times we don't give ourselves the credit we deserve. We're not seeing the difference because we're growing with the changes, right? Somebody who you showed your pictures to 5 years ago, and I've done this, by the way, they'll come and look at my pictures 5 years later because I lost touch with them and I meet up with them at another, event. It could be a makeup artist, for example, that saw my work, something I did with her 5 years ago, and then I'll do something with her 5 years later, and she'll get the pictures and she'll call me and say, Juan, completely different from what you were doing 5 years ago. I love your work now. So you should be growing, right? I should be growing. We all need to keep growing. Along those lines of, critiquing your work, find a pro that's willing to sit down with you and critique your work. Maybe you can go to a photography studio, maybe even pay them and say, I'm willing to pay you for a half hour of your time. I know you're probably expensive, but say something like that. That way you're welcoming, they know that you appreciate their time. They're probably, when they see that you're that caring and of their time, they're probably going to say, you know what, I'm open tomorrow at noon. Why don't you come by and I'll take a look at your work. Have something ready. Don't show them 2,000 pictures. They don't have time for that. Come up with like 20 or 30 pictures, no more than that you can sit and just show them. They're going to go through them probably fairly quickly, and they're going to give you some critique, some points of improvement. That is wonderful. Sometimes that's worth reading 5 books and watching 50 videos. I mean, you get it right down to the point, and most people are just willing to do that. Keep that in mind. So where are we at the end of all this, right? Well, we discussed many different ideas. At the end of the day, the important thing to remember is, back to the beginning, have a goal. Where do I want to be in a year? Where do I want to be in 2 years? Have a plan. This is how I'm going to get there. I'm going to read. I'm going to study some software. I'm going to learn a little bit of videography. I'm going to talk to other photographers. I'm going to go on some outings. How am I going to get to 10,000 pictures faster? That's another thing to, to consider. I need to get out more. I was locking myself up on the weekends and spending a lot of time watching, shows and TV shows and stuff like that. Maybe it's time to cut that back a little. Do you have to stop it altogether? No. If you enjoy that, you can keep it. I narrowed that down almost to nil because I do love working with you guys here on the videos. I love coming up with topics. I go into other photographers' videos and I look at their topics and see what subtopics I can pick and elaborate on. I love doing that. So I've cut down, all the shows and series and stuff like that on TV because I'd rather be doing this, but you don't have to, right? My point is just balance your time so you're not wasting all of it. You can put some into your hobbies and into these things that you enjoy doing that may end up getting you some money also. Always take time to learn, but as we said, more importantly, in a way, is take time to shoot. Practice your trade, wherever it is, painting, cabinet making, whatever it is, skydiving, whatever you're passionate about, you want to keep doing it. You want to do it as much as you can afford, because some things are expensive. If you're into race car driving, that can get pretty expensive. So, you have to gauge it, of course, but do as much of it as you can. And when you do it, be aware of what you're doing. Pay close attention. Don't just shoot pictures. Don't just drive the car. Pay attention to the details of the road, of the sound, of the handling of your photography. Look at what your camera is doing. Cameras change over time. And if you're a good photographer, you should be able to see your camera changing over time and know that it may need an adjustment, maintenance, right? Because you're paying attention. Wow, the clarity is not as good as it used to be. There's a slight focus thing that I'm seeing that I wasn't seeing before, issue here. That's all being aware of what you're doing. When you're aware of the details and you're spending time training on the basics, you put those two together, it's a powerful combination. You're practicing the basics often and you're doing them with mindfulness. Oh, there's nobody that's going to beat you if you start doing that. If you start focusing on the basics of photography, which are composition, the right aperture for the picture you need, depending on what depth of field you want, the right speed. The basics will continue to be important. And when you practice them with mindfulness, being completely aware of what you're doing, that'll skyrocket you. You may not even need 10,000 pictures. You could probably do it with half of that. So we are at our conclusion. Thank you for joining me today. I love spending time with you guys. And I hope that this was valuable for you. Like the video to your bottom left and subscribe down here on your bottom right. And please share it with anybody that might find it interesting. And I hope to see you in the next video. From the bottom of my heart, always love you guys. And I wish you the very best. Stay healthy, drink your water. See you soon. Ciao for now.